Yeah, because they forgot to put violence. Thank you.
No, you did not. You never gave me a chance to put my foot on the...
not have been more reasonable.
I did not say no. I asked you why.
You go to Melbourne West Police
That's
Station and you
absolutely
can take
untrue. I never said no. I asked you why. And you never even gave me a chance. You never gave me... I said I am not in charge. I said I'm not in charge. And I said I will pass the message on.
And I said I will take it to the police
So you
station
never-
where you can come and get it.
Oh, well, I can't come and get it.
Oh, then somebody can.
All
That's
right,
fine.
well, why didn't you give me 2 minutes?
Justin.
That's a horrible piece of behaviour. That's outrageous what you've just done. It's spiteful. No, that's my property.
Or you will be
That is my property. I paid for that. Out of my own money I've worked for. How dare you steal my property?
In the meantime, I'm not satisfied that it won't be put up again in a public
You
place.
never asked.
The conversation is over.
He never asked. I asked him. He never asked. I said I'm not in. I said I'm not in charge, and I will pass. How ridiculous! I said I am not in charge, and I will pass the message on. And he never gave me a chance to get my foot on.
We'd like our sign back.
We'll move when you give us back our banner. I'm sure they can take it down. But now they won't give it back. He never gave me a chance to move. I asked him what was
We
going
have our
on.
banner
Haven't
back.
you got a radio station, a or something, man?
We'll just have the banner back. That's
You
not
want us to
Move out the
move?
street,
Give me the banner
otherwise
and
you'll
we'll
be
move it.
arrested.
Haven't you got a radio station?
Give me back the banner.
Move or you'll be arrested.
Give me back my banner. We'll move out of the way.
Okay, I'm giving you a direction to move on. You will be arrested. Do you understand, ma'am? Move off the roadway, otherwise you will be arrested. Move off the roadway. Off the roadway, please. Move off the road, please. Are you refusing to move? Okay, put your hands behind your back. You are under arrest. You are under arrest. Put your hands behind your back.
Look at this! Can you see what's happening here? Nobody, why are you clapping? So we're not allowed to say WiliLeaks for you! Arresting somebody for just trying to do something. Hey! That man over there! I recognise him! He's a rapist!
He's wanting
He's a rapist! Congratulations! That's all I can say.
Nothing to be congratulated about though, mate. This is what they do.
I can't
Pardon?
That man over there is a rapist. Why are they arresting him?
Her under arrest for me, please. Just detain her, for obstruction of the highway. I'll take carriage of it. I want her detained.
Who am I obstructing?
Why is she obstructing anyone?
Just stay off the road.
Doing anything.
I'm off the road.
That's fine.
They stole my banner. They took my banner and won't give it
Okay,
back.
put your hands behind your back. Don't resist. Put your hands behind your back. Do not resist. Put your hands behind your back and do not resist. Behind your back.
You see what's happening here?
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back and stop resisting.
There has been some great cause and exhibition, so if you in there.
Put your hand behind your back and stop resisting. Stop resisting.
Resist! Resist! We must resist! Oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. You can't resist! Can you believe it? Assange! This is what a fascist state is! This is a slaughter! This is what a gun is! This is what a gun is! Get it! What fascist it is! I'm just saying. This is what fascism is! This is what the AFP does! They raided the ABC offices and next they're going to raid our homes! This is a fascist country! This is an act of fascism! The AFP raided the ABC offices and next they're going to raid our homes! Why aren't they out arresting the war criminals?
Yeah, this is what they do, mate. They took a banner off. As I was saying, one day they raid News Corporation journalists, next is the ABC. Then they come to the UK Consulate where they've got Julian Assange in court today after spending time in Britain's Guantanamo, Belmarsh prison built for terrorists. We come here to offer him support. The Australian Federal Police are now a political police force. If there was ever any suggestion that they weren't before the events of the last couple of weeks, the Australian Federal Police now have a remit to stop people speaking out on behalf of whistleblowers, because whistleblowers are the new terrorists. This is what we're here for, mate. The Public Order Response Team.
Thanks, mate.
For holding the banner.
While we do our
For holding the
investigation.
banner about Julian Assange.
Breathing better than Julian Assange, mate. Are you aware of what they're doing to him?
We're going to sit you up, okay? More comfortable sitting up?
Yes.
Right, legs out for me. Legs out straight.
Are you aware of... So we had a banner up tied between two poles, a banner that I paid for myself. I work hard. The police took it down, okay, and then they wouldn't give it back. They refused to give it back. They've got it in their car. So we blocked their car, demanding they give the banner back and then we'll move, and they wouldn't. They then arrested Jacob, and they called these two over. I moved off the road and was standing on the footpath, but that police officer lost his cool and had me arrested anyway, even though I was on the footpath.
As I say, here I am, sitting in the back of the Australian Federal Police.
Excuse me, I've asked you to move away, please, just while we deal with our investigation. Thank you.
Public Order Response Team.
How are you? Of course they're all good. They've got weapons and they're in uniform.
No, I can say what I like. You cannot take away my free speech. Make what harder for myself? It's hard enough as it is. Raided the ABC for fuck's sake. This is what Julian Assange predicted.
You're further under arrest for assault as well. You assaulted that gentleman over there and he's identified you to me as the offender. Let's have her up on her feet, lads. And over to this police car over here.
That's our keys and being here and that.
Okie doke. Just step back, sir. Thank you.
All good, Grech.
order to resist arrest, a quick summary interview will release it.
Whose side are you boys on, mate? You don't look like cop lovers. You look like working class like me. Not like the scumbag standing next to you. No. Free Assange! Yay! Free Assange! Bring Assange home! Here we go!
Oh, okay.
I've been working with the police very well, This is what we're getting here today.
UK! US! Hands off Assange! UK! US! Hands off Assange! You're not allowed an opinion in Australia now, especially not if it's an opinion for peace. If you were anti-war, you were going to be arrested. They will come into your homes and they will take your property. You can resist as well. Why aren't these police out arresting real criminals? Instead they're arresting a single guy that worked hard. They stole my Free Assange banner off me. Who does that? I work for that. I pay for it out of my own money. Where are the real criminals? Why aren't they arresting them? Is that what you're doing? Then they took the banner and put it in their car and wouldn't give it back. So I demanded that they give it back and they won't. A free... I pay your wages. I pay it. Will you protect me now? Will you protect me? They will not stand up for you. But I will.
No,
You're the only one with bravery here. I'll never stop fighting for truth and freedom, and I'll never stop trying to bring Julian Assange home. They will never stop me from fighting for him. Everyone heard me give him my name and he's saying that I didn't. My name is Raine. You all heard me, right? You heard me say that to this officer. But for my safety and yours, I just want to get you off the road.
further back. Further back. There's no need to be that close.
Yeah, just a
Further back. I understand that, but
demanded they give the banner back and we'll move. They didn't. They arrested my friend Jacob first. Then we moved off the footpath, and I was actually standing on the footpath when I was arrested. I was not on the road. But that police officer lost his cool a bit, and he wanted to take me down, so he did.
Have you been arrested or charged?
I haven't been charged. They're saying I'm being detained. They like detaining people in Australia, don't they? They even detain us right here on the damn footpath. It's laughable.
Why are you standing here, Margaret?
It's a white one.
And they've taken him.
How many? Very well.
Photo with the Assange. Free Assange! Bring Assange home! Free Assange!
Can I get you on the platform? East.
They've been taken off to West Melbourne Police Station for having a banner. This is called fascism. This is what happens when fascism starts to take control. If people are being arrested for having a banner, what is it next? If the ABC is raided by the police, what next? If Julian Assange is extradited to the USA, what next? It's a very populist opinion to hate someone when you've had so much propaganda flung at you. It's very propagandist. But if you can't see the similarities, then we're all doomed. It might sound dramatic, but if you don't see what's going on in the rest of the world, in Syria, in Yemen, you can't understand what's in for us. This is disgusting to stand by and do nothing when people are being murdered, when people are being tortured in our name, in Western government's names. And I see you smiling over there, but you wouldn't be smiling if a bomb was dropped on your baby. You wouldn't be smiling at all. Drive away. We are here because we're not afraid to say this is wrong. We're not going to run with the pack. We're not going to be afraid of the populist opinion. We're actually going to stand up and count for something. And if you can't do that, then oh my God, shame on you.
Preach, sister!
I stand today to condemn the detention, the punishment and the torture of both Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. As I do that of all journalists and whistleblowers worldwide, I demand their immediate release and pardon. They've suffered enough for exposing the cover-ups, the atrocities and the lies. Enough! I condemn the AFP and their recent raids on a News Corp journalist and then on the ABC, among many others. And I condemn those who ordered those raids. I applaud whistleblowers and journalists who reveal the truth. For following the courage of their convictions, I express my dissent to the intimidation, the persecution and the muzzling of journalists and whistleblowers here and worldwide. I condemn the laws that aim to keep the truth hidden and perpetuate the lies that serve to brutalise and oppress humanity. I oppose the reasons for their persecution, their prosecution and incarceration, and I express my dissent of those who accuse them of being criminals. If there are laws they have broken to reveal the atrocities of war, laws they've broken to reveal the lies, the cover-ups and the corruptions of governments, laws that indeed have been broken to reveal the torture of hundreds, then I say those laws are wrong. I condemn such laws that see war criminals go free while those brave enough to reveal the truth are punished and prosecuted. They didn't commit the crimes, they exposed them. Why are they being locked up? I express my dissent for the US government and all its members for perpetrating horrifying acts against humanity, and then scapegoating the likes of Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. And I express my dissent for the Swedish government for attempting to curry favour with the US, and both the British and the Australian governments for their allegiance to US imperialism. Shame! Shame! I condemn Britain's Home Secretary for signing Julian's extradition papers. I condemn the Ecuadorian government for offering up Assange with such relish. I condemn Collier for while he feigned asylum for Assange, he was locking up his very own whistleblowers right there in Ecuador. I condemn Montero for delivering Assange's head on a platter on a cheap promise to feather his gluttonous nest while his own people are oppressed and in need. Shame!
We are experiencing today something not so far removed from the 1920s, and that ended up Hitler, Mussolini, World War II. Are we not going to learn the lesson of history? Are we going to fate ourselves to have a similar experience all over again? And hopefully next time we'll learn the lesson. Don't be fooled, because people were fooled in the 1920s. And it didn't only happen there, because there was a pro-Nazi movement, significant one in this country as well. At that time, well, one or two people come past and called us traitors. Who are the traitors? The people who care about the place they live, who care about the people they live with. Are they traitors? Or is it the people who are prepared to sell out their own for a fistful of dollars?
Morrison.
Who's the traitor?
Morrison! Assange, free Bennet! Don't shoot the messenger! Free 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 Assange, free...
Okay, everyone, do I need the megaphone?
Yes, I can hear you on the street.
All right. Thanks for the warm welcome back from the loving arms of Victoria's finest. And first thing I'll do is thank our colleagues from the Police Association for bolstering our numbers in support of Julian in such large numbers. If only we can get other trade unionists out on the street and these kind of numbers will be set.
Yeah, where are they?
All right. Look, I'm going to talk without this. I'm going to talk without this because it just gives too much feedback. And I've got one of those voices. But I've just been released, as has my colleague here, from police custody, where I don't know yet, we haven't had a chance to confer what she's been charged with, but I'll be charged with resisting arrest, obstructing a public highway, disturbing the peace, and 3 or 4 other things that were rattled off. But by the state. Who is it ever? It's the state. I don't care whether you call it Victoria, or you call it Australia, or you call it the United Kingdom. It is the state that is bringing us down. It is the state that is treating us, well look, I've no complaints about the way they treated me today, but you've got another Melbourne bloke, a good Melbourne bloke by the name of Julian Assange. There's his face there. He's currently in Belmarsh Prison in London. Now Belmarsh Prison is known as Britain's Guantanamo, and it's not me calling it that. It's no less an august institution than the BBC, who was raising the term when they were inquiring about, I think, between 6 and 10 unknown foreign nationals who were being kept there without charge, without communication, 24-hour solitary confinement back in 2004. It was built for terrorists and murderers. It was not built for somebody doing the maximum sentence on a charge of non-attendance in court. I've got so many non-attendance in court they didn't even bother looking them up while I was in the police station. All right? You can, yeah. So my point is that Julian is going for the first procedural hearing, I'll admit, to be extradited to the United States in about 10 hours' time over in London. Now over there, he's facing charges under the Espionage Act, where at a minimum of the 8, if you add the 18 charges he's going to be faced with, will be 175 years. Now there's also every chance that once he's in custody in the United States, he'll have other charges laid upon him. At the moment they're saying they can't do that, but they will do that. And believe me, back in 2010, when he was first arrested, we were saying this is bullshit, this is a ploy to get him extradited to Sweden, because Sweden has a strong record of sending people at the behest of the United States anywhere the United States wants to send them. It's Sweden's record. But now, then when he absconded seeking asylum to the Ecuadorian embassy, they said we were paranoid, that the United States didn't want to arrest him, that this was just a trick, that it was paranoia, that it was narcissism. And now we know it's true. Now we know that since 2010, the CIA have had a WikiLeaks task force made up of at least 300 people doing nothing except besmirching Julian's name and besmirching the work of WikiLeaks. And this is why they've got him in Belmarsh. Because once they start treating you as a terrorist, they can do whatever the fuck they like. They can spread false rumours of sexual assault about you, like they did not just to Julian, but to every peace activist since Martin Luther King has been accused of being a rapist or a pedophile. It used to be gay, but that doesn't matter anymore. That is what they're doing, and they're calling us terrorists. They're calling WikiLeaks terrorists. They're calling Julian terrorists. And you know what? I agree with them. Because normally, when we think of terrorists, we think of ourselves blowing up nightclubs, suicide bombers. We think of people bombing cafes, strapping explosives to their chests. And that kind of shit terrifies me. That kind of shit terrifies the people. That's why they do it. But it doesn't terrify the state. It does not terrify the state. Terrorism plays an integral part of the state. The state is on a war footing. Capitalism, every time there is a terrorist event anywhere in the world, I'll tell you where to go. I'll tell you where to look on the web. Look up Bloomberg's share price index. Look up the stock prices of the largest security and arms companies in the world, and you will see, time and time again, without fail, every time there is a terrorist attack, capitalism makes an extra dollar. It doesn't terrify capitalism at all. What terrifies capitalism, what terrifies them is the truth. When you've got a whole edifice built on lies, the only thing that can bring it down is the truth. And that is why they have got Julian in Belmarsh. That is why Edward Snowden is hiding in somewhere. That is why Aaron Swartz is dead. That is why Daphne Caruana Galizia is dead from a car bomb. That is why Ola Biddy is rotting in an Ecuadorian cell. That is why whistleblowers all over the world are being treated as terrorists, because we terrify them. The truth is scary. And so I want to talk here for a little bit about the truth. We've got, as I said, our representatives from the Police Association here today. People will know that the police, the federal police, okay, the people who are hiding inside, not these guys. These are just the guys they send out to do their dirty work. All right, the federal police, they raided the offices of the ABC. They've got David McBride, a whistleblower, a defence lawyer, who leaked the Afghan files. He's slated for trial in 2 weeks' time, and he hasn't even been given a list of the, what do they call it, the charges, the evidence, because it's national security. Now, David McBride, by the way, is a son of William McBride, the doctor who broke the news about the effects of thalidomide on unborn babies. That's who we're talking about here. He comes from a long, proud line. All right, but let's look for a moment why they raided the ABC. And they raided the ABC, first and foremost, I believe, because of a kid called Khan Mohammed. You never heard of him, have you? Because we're all talking about the ABC raids, the AFP raids on the ABC. Khan Mohammed was his file was one of the files David McBride leaked. He was a 14-year-old kid. He'd never been in any trouble with anyone. He never had any association, him nor his family, with any insurgent forces in Afghanistan. He was picking fucking figs off his family fig trees for his family breakfast in the dawn light, when Australian soldiers saw him and shot him dead. They didn't just shoot him dead. They didn't even report it. They left him to lie where his body fell. The only way we know is because somebody had access to that unit's GPS, which showed them loitering at the exact point this kid was killed, with the same bullets that the Australian infantry were using at the exact time. That is why they've declared war on whistleblowers. That is why they're raiding the AFP. Another one of the files that David McBride leaked to the ABC concerned a bloke called Bismillah Azadi and his 6-year-old son, Sadiqullah Azadi, who were laid in bed when their home was entered, without approval, without invitation, by the Australian SAS, where they were shot in their beds where they slept. A 40-something-year-old man and his 6-year-old son, never in any trouble, no connection with the Taliban or any other insurgent group. And they weren't just shot, the walls were sprayed with bullet holes. The floor was sprayed with bullet holes. They were strafed repeatedly by the Australian military. And the soldiers that did it were totally excused. A little perfunctory, investigation was held, took about a day, and they were totally clear. They met the cousins, the relatives of Sadiqullah and his father, Bismillah, and they apologised and asked for forgiveness, which they weren't given. And as they left, to rub insult into the wound, to add insult to injury, a further indignity, they dropped some cash on their corpses. They dropped some cash on their fucking corpses. Now, that is why the AFP, at the behest of the Australian government, let's make no bones about it, let's not pretend that Peter Dutton, Scott Morrison didn't know these were going to happen. They knew it was going to happen. If they didn't order it, they gave it a wink. There was no way in the world the head of the AFP was going to raid the ABC without a nod and a wink from the relevant minister. The head of the AFP is not that much a fuckwit. He's not that much an idiot. All right, was done with the knowledge of the Australian government. As this, Julian is being held with the full complicity of the Australian government. One of our Prime Ministers, there have been so many in recent years, it's hard to know how many ago she was, Julia Gillard, suggested he be stripped of his passport and brought to Australia and jailed.
There's your Labour!
Even the AFP said, excuse me, Prime Minister, he hasn't actually committed an offence under Australian law. Well, he hasn't committed an offence under British law, yet he's being kept. But this is why they've declared war on journalists. This is why they've declared war on whistleblowers. Because, as I said earlier, their whole artifice is built on an edifice of lies. And that's only the truth which can destroy these lies. The AFP also raided the house of Annika Smethurst, a News Corp journalist, for the crime of writing information which has never been denied about how the Australian government was going to change the laws to make it easier for our spy agencies to spy on Australian citizens.
G5!
No one questions the veracity of her work. All they're saying is, yes, we are going to spy on Australian citizens, but they aren't supposed to know.
The excess of evil!
And what are they doing? And when I say the government here, don't think I'm being in any way partisan. Every law they've passed, and Australia has passed more laws than any other country in the world to do with restrictions of civil liberties since the bombing of the World Trade Center in 2001. More laws than any country in the world. Some of them passed by the Howard Liberal government with the full complicity of the ALP. Some of them passed by the Rudd-Gillard ALP government with the full support of the Liberal Party. Some of them passed by the current mob of Liberal turns with the full support of the current mob of Labor stooges. Go to WikiLeaks.org. Put in any issue, any country, any well-known person that you're interested in and read the leaks. Read what the truth is.
100% accurate.
Read. And WikiLeaks is the only publishing company in the world that has never once, not one single solitary time, had to issue a retraction because what it reported turned out to be false. Medias do it all the time. I do it. I say something to a mate that something happened, I find out it wasn't true, I've got to go back next week and say, listen Joe, that talk I was talking about, sorry it was wrong man, this is the truth. But WikiLeaks has never had to do that because don't believe the bullshit that they try to tell you. They are journalists. They are journalists. They fact check and verify every piece of information that comes their way, which is why still, as I'm talking to you now, even while Julian is in Belmarsh, even while Edward is in hiding, even while Ola is in prison in Ecuador. There are, while Chelsea Manning is in prison, where some of our people are dead. There are still journalists working tirelessly, going through all the leaks that have been given to WikiLeaks. And if you go to wikileaks.org, you will see that the database is being added to every day, every hour, with new information about who's who that's screwing you. And that is why they're afraid. So it doesn't matter that my colleague and I got arrested today. That's just water off a duck's back, quite frankly. To a lesser extent, it doesn't matter about any whistleblower in jail at the moment. Of course it does, but in the big picture, what is gonna change the face of journalism and change the way the Australian government, the American government, the Pommy government in there does work, does business, is by knowing the truth. It's by the people knowing that the next time they say we're sending troops to be involved in this war, what they actually mean is we're sending people to send 14-year-old kids pick and fix. Another leak, for example, that David McBride leaked to the ABC concerned a bloke whose name we don't even know. We only know of him as ECIA, Enemy Combatant Killed in Action. All right? Now, when they kill an enemy insurgent, so-called, they've got to prove he's an insurgent. And the way they do that is they get some kind of identification, whether it's a retinal scan or a positive identification or fingerprints or something. Well, it turns out when they didn't have time to do that, they thought, no worries, I'll pull me bayonet off the end of me fucking machine gun and I'll cut his fucking hands off. And I'll put him in a bag and we'll ID him later. That is what the Australian military do. That is what they are trying to hide. That is what they don't want you to know. You know, it's often been said about when I was a young bloke in the Vietnam War, that the Vietnam War was the first war that was televised, that we could see the images. We could see the girl covered in napalm scars. And that is what built the peace movement, built the anti-war movement, led to a march down this street of 100,000 people, and ultimately led to the election of a decent politician who pulled our troops out of Vietnam. Now, if we know the truth, we can change the narrative. It's not that we can't stop them controlling the military, they control that. We can't stop them controlling money, they control that. That's why we call them capitalists. But what we can control is the story. And throughout human history, my friends, it has never been the government that controlled the story. The last 100 years, 150 years, yeah. But you go back beyond that and you'll find that it's the people's stories that live through the ages. And in years to come, in generations to come, it will be you people who stood outside the British Consulate to support Julian. It'll be Julian, it'll be WikiLeaks, it'll be all the journalists going through the leaks and emails. It'll be people like David McBride, it'll be people like Chelsea Manning, like Aaron Swartz, who was killed, apparently as a suicide, like Daphne Caruana Galizia, who was killed in a car bomb. It'll be those people who change the way wars are fought on this planet. We need to resist, and to resist, we need to know the truth. Thank you for being here today.